Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you're having a great Friday. May has now started, which is our mental health month and self-care. So today we have been very, very blessed to have Boys and Girls Club help us with this and bring in Myra Reyes to help us with our presentation today. So again, thank you all for joining us. And just a reminder, if you have any questions during the presentation, if you will either put them in the chat or in the Q&A portion of the presentation, we'd really appreciate it. So Myra, I'm going to turn this over to you.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for the invitation. Good afternoon. My name is Myra Reyes. And this is one of the things that I do, like I was telling Ms. King, that I do work full-time with UTRGV School of Social Work. I'm one of their faculties there, but this is one of the things that I do on the side, overseeing our clinical services within the Boys and Girls Club, Youth and Family Support Services. Just a very brief overview, our program is within the 4 clubs here in the area. We have this program in the West Echo Club, Edinburgh, Pharr, and also the McAllen Club. So all of those clubs are where we have social workers and social service specialists and also our clinicians providing the services to our families. If at any point you do have any of your families that would benefit from receiving services at the Boys and Girls Club through this program, you're more than welcome to reach out, and that way we can provide you with that support. I really thank you for being here. I hope that this information is helpful. I am a clinical social worker supervisor, and I've been practicing for over 12 years here in the area. And I also do laughter yoga. So that's also part of another topic that I usually present on when it comes to self-care and the benefits of laughter. But for today, I will be focusing on mental health and self-care. I really hope that this information is useful for you. My phone number is there. My email with the Boys and Girls Club is there. But you're more than welcome to reach out if you need any of the other information that I go over during my presentation. I'll be more than happy to talk to you a little bit further, or to refer you to any of the community agencies that you may benefit from. How I like to start out my presentation when I talk about mental health is I would like to talk about the words that we use to describe mental health. So as we know, mental health is something that is making more of a boom now, where people are more aware about it. People are more open to the idea about seeking mental health. But maybe about 10 years or so, or maybe even 5 years ago, people were very close-minded, and even some of us were very hesitant about reaching out for resources. And I would like for you to think about one word that you use to describe mental health. This word could be a word that you either use it informally with your friends, or maybe use it behind the scenes with your coworkers, or you use it bluntly in front of clients or in front of anybody in the community. So think about that word. Now, once you think about that word, how you describe mental health, think about it. Is this word, if I was ever to use this word in front of a loved one that is needing mental health services, or in front of a client that is needing mental health services, but is hesitant about reaching out, would this word have an impact on the stigma of how they perceive mental health services are? So always think about that, how we address mental health, how we address ourselves when it comes to being advocates for mental health, being able to refer people for services. And it's important that we start there with the stigma. So this is information, and I present this type of information with law enforcement, with students, with the community, other professionals, because it's important that we are a little bit more open when it comes to the services that we can receive whenever it comes to a mental illness. When it comes to stigma regarding mental health, it's important that we understand that about 40% of individuals don't seek help because of the stigma that's behind mental health. And it's a good 40% of individuals that could be receiving anything from psychiatric assistance to mental health, or mental health counseling, talk therapy, skills training, but at some point they get stuck because of how mental health is being seen in the community. So these are 5 things that you can do to reduce the stigma. You want to get to know the facts, learn about what a mental illness is, and we're going to go over some information right now. Be aware of your own attitudes and behavior, like I said earlier. Look into your judgmental thinking. How are you when it comes to mental health? How is society? How are we reinforcing and upbringing our children, our grandkids when it comes to mental health? Choose your words carefully. The way that we speak has a lot to do with how it can affect others, our attitude towards mental health. And focus on the positive mental illness, including addictions, are only a part of everyone's larger picture. So we want to make sure that we see that there is some type of treatment. It's like a medical issue, like diabetes, like high blood pressure. Maybe we cannot get rid of it completely, but we may be able to provide some type of treatment. And it's the same thing when it comes to a mental illness. Treat everyone with dignity and respect, offer support and encouragement. And that's where I can come in as a resource. If at any point you are working with somebody and you just don't know where to refer them, you feel that all the referral services that you can provide, you already exhausted all of them, then reach out, and I don't mind guiding you or providing you with the best resource. In being a social worker, it gives us that opportunity to know a lot about our resources in the community. And like I presented earlier this week, that we're very fortunate here in the Valley that we do have mental health resources for everybody. And people are like, no, like, are you sure? Well, we do. We have resources for people that have insurance, no insurance, people that may have a social security number, may not have a social security number. So there is an opportunity here in the area to seek services. So please don't hesitate to do so. Now, what are the most common mental health conditions? 1 in 5 US adults experiencing mental illness each year. So it could be any of us that are dealing with this. It doesn't discriminate if we have an education or not, if we are older, if we're younger. We cannot be experiencing a mental illness, at least 1 in 5. 1 in 20 US adults experience a serious mental health illness. So this is something more serious, like bipolar disorder type 1, like schizophrenia, something that is not that typical, that for sure you may need medication to get this treated. 1 in 6 US youth from ages 6 to 17 experience a mental health disorder each year. And through the pandemic, through COVID, that has been giving us a lot of more resources in the schools. And here through the Boys and Girls Club, that is how we're able to provide also more support in our after school programs for the children and the families as well. So it's important that we keep in mind that 6 to 17, it's a really good age for us to make a big impact and for us to be able to target any of the issues that they may be dealing with so that they can have a better adulthood. 50% of all lifetime mental illnesses began by age 14 and 75% by age 24. So this is good information to always keep in mind when trying to see what is this child going through, what is this teenager or young adult dealing with, and try to refer them as much as you can. When it comes to the treatment, so as we know, there are different types of treatment, just like for any other illness. For mental illnesses, you can go through talk therapy, which is called psychotherapy, in an individual way, family, group, or peer support. And also for medication, it could be given by a psychiatrist, which is the ideal person to give this medication. Also a family doctor. But we always want to remember that medication is going to have some side effects. So it's always important that when we educate our community about medication for mental illnesses, that we know that it may take some time to kick in. It may take some time for our body to get stabilized. So it's always important to be looking out for that it's not going to be an automatic thing that medication is going to remove our symptoms of depression or anxiety, but it may take some time. This is a manual that we use when it comes to mental health, and how do we assess or how do we look into the symptoms to be able to see what is the mental disorder that the individual is dealing with. Now we have a revised version of this, but this is a diagnostic and statistical manual for mental health disorders. So I just like to educate our community of how do we back ourselves up when we say that this person has depression. So this is one of the tools that we use to be able to classify disorders or to describe the symptoms that the individual may be dealing with. There are some personality disorders that individuals are dealing with. And this is just like a cheat sheet of the different ones that you guys can maybe have observed in your life, or maybe with the people that you work with. And the most common one, or the one that I deal with the most in the type of work that I've done when it comes to crisis intervention, has been a borderline personality disorder. But we want to remember that when it comes to personality disorders, they don't get diagnosed until they are young adults or sometimes late teens. But this is something that we may see more in adults whenever we're working in the community. So then what are mood disorders? Mood disorders is important for us to remember that this is the most common mental illness, is what we see the most. And this is where the depression or the extreme sadness comes in. Whenever individuals are very depressed and maybe very irritable, maybe they're not able to be happy like they want because of how things have evolved in their lives. Maybe things have happened so much, or a lot of trauma situations, that they may have these depressive episodes. but also they may have a mix of manic episodes. So that's where the mood disorder comes in, and that's where the mania comes in. And that is where we classify the individual as having bipolar disorder. So anxiety disorders can also be affecting the mood. So that's something to keep in mind, that under mood disorders is anxiety and depression. Mood disorders may also increase the risk of suicide. So that is something that we also want to be open to the idea that individuals that may have anxiety may also have suicidal ideations. Sometimes we think that, oh no, they're okay, they're just anxious, they're not going to want to harm themselves, but it is possible. So always keep that in mind. Major depressive disorder, that's the one that is our biggest, our most famous disorder. And then from there we have anxiety. Anxiety has a different umbrella, and there's different types of anxiety underneath. And that's where bipolar disorder may be seen. Also seasonal affective disorder, which is abbreviated for SAD. And this is more affecting other parts of the nation, but also here we may have it during the winter, during the fall semester, that our sun reduces a little bit, or our climate reduces a little bit. And there's also other ones that are listed here. But because of the time, I don't want to go into it very detailed. But if there's any information that you feel you would like to know more about, you're more than welcome to reach out. When it comes to anxiety, some of the things that people feel, they may feel maybe intense, very jumpy, restlessness, irritable. Maybe their heart is racing very fast. They have shortness of breath, upset stomach, sweating, tremors, headaches, fatigue, insomnia, upset stomach, frequent urination or diarrhea. So these are a lot of symptoms that people with anxiety experience. And I will be being in the field for over 20 years. It allows you the flexibility when people say, oh, I have an important presentation coming up, and for the past 3 months, I've been feeling this way. So that's where we want to see, okay, so what is needed right now? Is this normal? Is it just anxiety that we're going through? Or is it an anxiety disorder? And we look at a lot into time frame. So for how long has this person been feeling this way? Have they been feeling this way for like at least 2 weeks? If they haven't been going to work, they haven't been bathing, for example, depression, maybe changes in their sleep, changes in their appetite, lack of concentration, loss of energy, lack of interest, low self-esteem, hopelessness, changes in the movement, or physical aches and pains. So this is important that we are always looking out for. And we also check in with ourselves. Whenever I present, especially to law enforcement, when I try to teach them about what mental health is, or how they can work when dealing with mental illnesses, symptoms in the community, I always try to put it back at them. So you put yourself in their shoes, in that person's shoes. If you were to feel this way, how would you like for somebody to treat you? And that's what I always like try. And that's the same thing that I'm giving, to the audience today, that if we're dealing with somebody that's feeling this way, how would we want that person to approach us if we were the ones dealing with it later on? So schizophrenia is another famous, or another type of mental illness. Schizophrenia is mainly whenever the individual is having hallucinations, delusions, and there's 3 types, or the most common ones, which is catatonic, which is when the person has very rare movements, or they're very stiff, they cannot move. Disorganized, when their affect is very flat, maybe what they're saying is not connected to what you are seeing in their emotions. Also, their facial reactions, it's inappropriate, their emotions are inappropriate. And then the paranoid schizophrenia, which is more whenever they are having those hallucinations where they feel that people are following them, people are out to get them. Maybe they have delusions that they are, maybe, I don't know, they change into somebody else, or they just feel that they're the king of the world. But because of that, people are out to get them. So this is more of being scared of others, and this may affect how they're dealing with people that are close to them. So then these are some of the symptoms that I just went over right now. And then PTSD is something else that's also very important. It's important for us to keep in mind that people that may be dealing with PTSD may be going through flashbacks, nightmares, severe anxiety, as well as uncontrollable thoughts about the event. Symptoms usually start about a month or years after the incident. So it's important that we are able to provide them with a referral in the community. That way they can be able to know, what do I need to do to be able to deal with the symptoms? Or when I get triggered, how can I get supported to be able to not go back to that time and have to re-experience, or know how to stop from re-experiencing whatever my trauma was. And remember that PTSD can apply to anybody. It can apply to somebody that has served in the army, has been active in combat, or it can be somebody that just went through some type of maybe a scare when they were walking down the hallway, or domestic violence, or in a crash. PTSD can apply to anybody. And always keep that in mind, because people have this misunderstanding that it's only for a certain population, but any of us could experience PTSD. Suicide warning signs. So these are some of the things that we want to be looking out for. If a person is talking about committing suicide, let's take it seriously. Sometimes we're like, oh, they're just playing, they just want attention. But honestly, they want that attention. Let's give them the attention. So that's where our community resources come in handy, and we're able to provide them with some support. Sometimes we need to do a welfare check. And what that means is that we would call the police department for them to go out and check on the person to make sure they're okay. So these are other suicide warning signs. They withdraw from friends or social activities. They may be preparing by writing a letter, a will, something where they're making their final arrangements, giving away their favorite items, have attempted suicide before, or they're taking unnecessary risks. So it's important that we are out there looking into how we can help our community. Whenever we're dealing with a person that's in crisis, we want to give them their personal space. We want to ignore any challenging questions. We want to permit them from venting, telling us what's going on, and of course, referring them somewhere, and not overreacting whenever they're telling us their story or their plan of how they want to end their lives. It's better to get as much information as we can, but to refer them to our law enforcement agencies in the community. These are just some resources. The one that I've been giving out the most has been the crisis text line, because that's important for individuals that may not be too verbal, or maybe teenagers and they just don't know how to reach out or how to ask for help. Texting could be a better way for them. So these are two, and also our suicide prevention lifeline. This is the Hope Peer Support Warm Line. I'm aware that Hope is part of this group, and I'm not sure when it comes to the times. The times may be different, but when it comes to the Warm Line, it could be available for anybody in English or Spanish, as long as during their office hours. And then, of course, NAMI, this is another resource for you, for the community. They're also very active in the community. They have their support groups once a month, and they do other presentations and events in the community to promote about mental illnesses. And the Hidalgo County Mental Health Coalition, it's another resource. They do have their website where you can go in there, you can download a list of resources for individuals that may be needing mental health, mental illness help, or mental health help. And then let's talk a little bit about self-care. So I'm going right on track with time. So self-care is giving the world the best of you instead of what's left of you. And we forget about that. And I've been talking about self-care throughout most of the week and this past months or so about the importance about doing so. Sometimes we forget about us. We worry about everybody else. We give and give and give, and we just forget to look at ourselves to see what is it that we would benefit from. And that's the reason why I decided to talk about self-care. So this is a good meme. This is a meme that says, Frank just up and exploded. I hope I never get that burned out. So when we're doing our work, we want to be checking in with ourselves, like maybe once every 3 months, once every 6 months. Like, am I still liking my job? Every day that I come to work, do I feel comfortable coming to work? Or do I feel exhausted all the time? Do I feel that every day is a bad day? How am I dealing with burnout? How am I dealing with having a lot of things on my plate? COVID gave us the flexibility of working from home, but then also it gave us the flexibility of opening your schedules more. So instead of driving for 30 minutes, now you can see somebody for those 30 minutes because you're just clicking from Zoom to Teams or from Zoom to WebEx. So you're not really driving anymore, but you have more demands on your side because you're able to see more people during that time. So it's always important to be checking in. I've heard that a lot of agencies have had a lot of their employees feel that they're burned out. So try to do this at least once every 3 months, once a month if needed. But that way you can know, how is it affecting me? There's some signs of secondary traumatic stress. Sometimes it affects our way of thinking, the way that we may have difficulty making decisions, our spiritual way, sometimes we may be questioning our meaning of life or what we're doing here. Do we really feel satisfied with what we have been working on? Our interpersonal, maybe we're physically withdrawing from our family, from our coworkers. We just go into our work and we leave. We don't interact anymore, or we get home and we're just doing our basic stuff, but we don't have that connection anymore. So those are signs of how you want to check in with yourself to see if you may be dealing with secondary traumatic stress. Also, when it comes to your emotional or physical behavior and professional, these are ways that it can be impacting you In your emotional, you can be feeling overwhelmed. You may feel hopeless. When it comes to your physical, you may feel like you're having low energy, you're feeling fatigue. When it comes to your behavioral, changing your routine or engaging in self-destructive coping mechanisms. Professional, you may experience low performance on your job tasks or responsibilities. Maybe before you would go above and beyond, and now you just feel that you do the minimum just to get through your day. So just always be checking in with yourself to see where you're at. Self-care is the ability to maintain physical, emotional, relational, spiritual health when times of stress. So stress is not good or bad. And that's something that we always want to be mindful of. We need stress to live through our days. We need stress to be able to move on, to motivate ourselves to keep on. So then stress is not good or bad, but it's how are we dealing with this stress? This is a self-care assessment that you can always go online. You can download it. This is a good tool for you to use. And like I tell the people that I present to, you can always do this on once a month, or no, I'm sorry, once every 6 months, once a year. That way you can be seeing, how is my self-care? Am I doing better? Am I doing worse? Where do I need to focus on so that I can be able to have a balanced life and balanced self-care? You want to develop your own self-care plan. It's part of a healing process. It's unique for everybody. You want to start with a couple of ideas at a time. You don't want to overwhelm yourself either. So this is an activity that we're not going to do right now, but this is an activity that I usually do, but it takes a lot more time and a lot more interaction. When it comes to physical self-care, how much exercise are you doing? How much dieting are you doing? And it's not so much about being fit or having all these muscles and having all these exercise routines that maybe 5, 6 times a week we're doing an hour to 2 hours of exercise. It's not about that. But some ideas of what we can do could be walking inside your house, walking in your office, just getting up and doing some stretching, or going outside for a walk. If you work at a big place where there's maybe a beautiful garden, or there's a walking trail within that's close by, during lunch, you can always take your 20, 30 minute lunch and then use the extra time to be able to do some physical exercise. When it comes to emotional and mental health care, how much are you doing when it comes to distracting yourself, getting outside of your routine, putting a pause to your duties? Even though we may have a good position where we have a lot of things going on, how much are you detaching from work? How often are you doing that? Are you actually taking some time to be able to say no to your boss, or maybe delegate some of your work if you are in a position like that? It's important that we are always doing that we're looking into, how can I take care of me so that I can take care of others a lot better? This is a good technique that I would like to share. And this one, I actually learned it when I used to work for Hope. So I worked for Hope for about 4.5 years. And when I was there, I learned this technique and I use it so much with the clients that I work with, but also with the students that I oversee, but just in my life in general. So these finger holds are to manage your emotions. So every finger is connected to emotions. And whenever you hold down to your finger and you connect it to some deep breathing, you're able to see that that emotion may be releasing. So if at any time you don't know what emotion you're dealing with, but you feel maybe some aches in your body that you feel maybe it's all connected to stress or what you're experiencing for that day or for that moment, try to do the finger holds. There is a link where you can go in there and you can be able to learn more about the finger hold technique, or you can just Google it or go to YouTube and you'll be able to find more information on this. You can teach a child how to release their emotions using their fingers, or you can do it on yourself or on a loved one that may be wheelchair bound or maybe bed bound. You can always help them by using their fingers to be able to release those emotions. There's also some phone apps that you can use. All of these phone apps are free. The ones that I have on the screen right now, they may guide you through some relaxation techniques, the breathing techniques. Also, you may be able to get distracted by playing some games, increase some coping tools to be able to know, how do I deal with the situation? So there's some coping cards that you can use. There's some quotes as well that you may need sometimes to feel inspired for that day. And also music is something else that helps us a lot. If you have a smartwatch, you can have that feature turned on where it can remind you to do a pause for deep breathing or to do a pause for meditation. You can also connect on social media. If you have social media such as Facebook, Instagram, even Snapchat, they have a lot of pages that you can follow that are connected to self-care. So try to do this more, because many times we're focusing so much on the media, on the news, that we forget that there's also some good that we can get from social media. And this is where you can do that. Follow this group or this pages, join this type of groups so that you can be able to have those positive moments on a daily basis. Counseling is for everybody, and that's something that we forget sometimes. We want to send everybody to counseling, we forget that it's also for us. So counseling can be obtained in person or online. For me, it works out online a lot better because I can be seen and I don't have to share with somebody that lives in my area, but somebody that's elsewhere in Texas, and we see each other just the same way that you're looking at me. It's confidential, the same way as you're seen in person. And then they serve as a neutral person, I'm sorry. So this person is not going to have sides with anybody, but it's going to be available to help you in your process, in your journey. And this is a 10-minute relaxation that we're not going to do right now, but you can always go on YouTube and you can do it yourself. It's a way of releasing anxiety, stress, and overthinking. That's what many of us are dealing with. Whenever the pandemic started, we were having all these fears, this anxiety about it. And we also began overthinking about the different things that people were dealing with, or what could have happened if we were to get COVID. So this is a good 10-minute video to listen to. This is a phrase that I guide myself by. I have this in every office that I'm in. I try to have it there available, which it says, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. There's many times that we are dealing with things that are outside of our control. So we're able to remind ourselves that that's what it is. We cannot control that situation. So why get anxious about it? Why get overwhelmed? Or why feel stressed when you can just go work with the here and now? This is a self-care wheel that you can get some ideas from so that you can be able to incorporate more of those self-care techniques. If you go to her website, olgaphoenix.com, you can download it in several languages. So, and she also has like a little handout, little book that goes along with it. But these are some ideas of what you can do to increase your self-care. And that's it. I am 3 minutes away from my time. Any questions, any comments?
Awesome. Thank you so much, Myra. This has been a great presentation, and especially for our first one to start us off in the month of May for mental health awareness. So we appreciate everything that you do, and we thank you for a wonderful presentation. So now like Myra said, we would like to open this up for any questions, concerns, chats that you would like to bring about. We will be more than happy to bring them to Myra. So Myra, some of the resources that you have, will you be able to send us those so we can get those out to everyone?
Yes, I can send you a PDF from my presentation, and you're more than welcome to share it. That's fine.
Perfect. That way everybody has a chance to look through everything and see where we go from there.
Okay. Yeah, so we do. So this was actually an idea that started back when I was an undergrad, back in 2009, 2010. I used to work with the Boys and Girls Club as a teen or like a high school student. And when I went into the social work profession, I spoke to Ms. Rocio Mata about the possibility of one day bringing social services. So that was back in 2009, 2008. And then she started writing grants here and there until we were able to hire full-time social workers to be at the clubs. And then in 2020, I signed up an agreement with the Boys and Girls Club to oversee their clinicians. So we have LCSWs, LPCs, LCSWs in training, LPCs in training that currently provide these resources or these services in the evenings for our kids, but then also to the families. They provide workshops, presentations, and this is why we loved being invited to this, so that we can share this information with more individuals in our community. But we are in the 4 main units, which is Pharr, Westlaco, Edinburgh, and McAllen, and then the subunits within those clubs. So if you have a family, you have a child that you think would benefit from this type of resources, you're more than welcome to refer them. They do have to be club members, but we do have some grants that we can pay for the membership fee if that's what is needed, so that they can be able to receive the services. But once they're our club members, they don't have to pay for any of these services.
Great. The other question that came in is there any in Cameron County that have
no
services?
As of right now, this grant is only under Hidalgo County. We would love for them to replicate this grant to be able to offer the resources in the other Boys and Girls Club. I believe we're one of the only in the nation that provide these services when it comes to for being at Boys and Girls Clubs. So we are writing, or Ms. Rocio is writing a book of how they can be replicated because of the model that we have and how it's been very successful.
That is amazing. All right, everyone. Well, it is now 12:30. We thank you all so much for your time. Myra, again, thank you so much for joining us today. We really, really appreciate this. And if you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out to UCD or Myra as well. And we will also be placing this presentation on the website. So be sure to go back and check it out if you want to go back and see anything. So, all right,
Thank
everyone.
you. I'm going to
Thank
log off
you.
and I will send you the PDF.
Perfect. Thank you,
Thank you.
everybody.